Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'll be predicting what's coming on your upcoming IGCSE Physics paper 2. So I know you guys that have that exam very soon. So I wanted to make this video to make revision easier and so you would be more confident going into that exam. So I went through a lot of past paper, especially the ones from the changed syllabus, and I have made some interesting observations. So make sure to watch until the end. So let's start. So the first topic is physical quantities and measurement techniques. So the probability for this one is 2.5%. So that means like one question per paper. So we all know that the paper has 40 marks, 40 questions. So expect one question to be the physical quantities and measurement. So this this topic, it's usually two questions or one question, mostly one question, but then I've seen times there was no question on this topic. So what they ask you, so they can ask you the use of different apparatus, so you should know the differences between like a ruler and a micrometer. It's rare they ask you that, but then it could come. The most common one is scalar and vector quantities. So they can ask you to differentiate between these. So a scalar quantity is the one with magnitude but no direction. But this one has direction, vector has direction. The next one is resultant vectors from diagrams. So this is the most common one, resulting vectors. So you have to resolve vectors so they can give you like graphs. Let's say this is x and this is y, and they can ask you what the resultant force would be, and they'll give you multiple different choices. So the resultant for this one is going to be going this direction, top right corner. That's going to be the resultant force or the resultant vector. Now the next topic is motion. So the probability is 5%, so expect two questions per paper. So what's interesting about motion is like in the 2023 Major papers, it was usually two questions, but what I've consistently seen is like in the October-November papers, it was just one question. So all the papers for October-November, they had only one question about motion. So we see a decrease in the popularity of motion, but it would still come. So make sure to know how to calculate velocity. So velocity is displacement over time. Acceleration, this is change in velocity over change in time, and also the distance. So you'll also be required to know the use of different motion graphs. So we have distance time graphs. We also have velocity time graphs. And we also have the last one is, I believe, acceleration time graphs. So we should know what the areas and the gradients of these graphs represent. So if you want to find out more, I'll link a video for it and in the description below, and I'll go through it in my crash course. So make sure to check that out. And the next one is the using different motion graphs like I've explained here. And the next one is understanding free fall and terminal velocity. So terminal velocity is the velocity reached when an object is falling freely, and the graph for that looks like this. We have velocity and time. So this is the graph for terminal velocity. So knowing this is very important for the multiple choice paper. Now the third topic is forces. So the probability is 12.5%. So expect about 5 questions per paper. And what they ask you, they can ask you to differentiate between mass and weight. They can also ask you about density. So make sure you know the formula, which is mass over volume. And it's 100% assured that they would ask you about turning effect of forces, because in each paper I've seen there's a question about moment. So what they give you is they usually give you like maybe like a uniform rod, and they give you a pivot, and they give you different masses, and they'll give you some values and the distances, and they would ask you to find maybe the force of this one after they've given you this one. So make sure you really understand how to do this kind of stuff, because I've seen it every single time. The next one is center of mass. Now, center of mass, they could ask you, but it's not very popular. And lastly, it's momentum. So momentum, know that momentum is the mass times velocity. And most momentum question has to do with the conservation of momentum. So momentum before collision is equals to momentum after collision. Make sure you understand that. The next topic is work, energy, and power. So the probability for this one is about 7.5%. So expect 3 questions on the paper. So what they ask you, they can ask you about the forms of energy, mostly kinetic energy and gravitational potential energy. The next one is energy sources. Now, energy resources, this is not popular in the multiple choice paper. I have not seen questions about this topic, but it still could come according to the syllabus. And the next one is work done and efficiency. Now, this is very popular. So make sure you know that work done is force times distance, and efficiency is equals to the output power over input power times 100. And there are also more formulas which I went through it on my crash course video, which I'll be linking down below. The next one is power. This is also very common. I've seen it every single time. So make sure you know the formula for power, which is energy transferred per unit time or work done per unit time. So make sure you know the formula for power. And sometimes they give you powers in kilowatts, so make sure to watch out for that. If it's kilowatt, make sure to multiply by 1000 if we require to, and the choices have units of watts. Next, pressure. So pressure is not very popular. It has decreased in popularity after the syllabus change, but it's still there. So probability is about 5%, so expect 2 questions per paper. And what I found interesting was in the Majun series for 2023, the pressure questions were only like 1 question per paper or 2. But on that October-November series, all the papers had 3 pressure questions. So that means it's increasing in popularity. So expect about 3 questions for the pressure topic. So make sure you really understand pressure because it's increasing. And what can they ask you? It's usually about pressure in solids and liquids. So know the formula for solids is force over area. Liquids is pressure is equals to density times gravity times height. And you should also know how the area affects pressure. So since pressure is force over area, they're inversely proportional. So if area increases, pressure decreases, and the other way around too. And the last one is calculating pressure on an object. So you use these 2 formulas based on what's given. Topic 6, it's thermal physics. So it has a probability of 7.5%. So expect 3 questions. 3 questions. And what they ask, they can ask you about the states of matter and the particle model. Now, what I've seen is on this topic, they've been asking a lot about Brownian motion. So make sure you understand Brownian motion. So quick recap, Brownian motion is a motion of an object like a large molecule when it's being bombarded by smaller molecules. So what they usually give you is they tell you that a pollen grain is observed under a microscope, and let's say this is a pollen grain, and then they can ask you what is the reason for the random movement of the pollen grain. It's because of small particles randomly bombarding each pollen grain. So they randomly hit the pollen grains, and the pollen grains, they have random motion. So make sure you understand this topic. The next one is thermal expansion. So know that when object is heated, it expands. And then third one is specific heat capacity. So know the formula for specific heat capacity, and we have Q, which is energy, equals mc change in T. So m is the mass, C is the specific heat capacity, and change in T is the change in temperature. Now, what I've also noticed to increase in popularity is the question about, okay, so they would give you different options, and they can ask you which one absorbs the most heat. So if an object is black and dull, it would absorb the most heat, because black is a good absorber, and it being dull is also a good absorber. And if an object is white and it's shiny, it's the shiny part reflects heat, and white is not a good absorber of heat. So this is the least absorption, and this is the maximum one. So make sure you know this stuff. And transfer of thermal energy. So there are three types, which are conduction, convection, and radiation. So make sure you understand these three terms. Number 7, it's waves. So this is one of the most popular topics in the multiple choice paper. So I believe this is like the second most popular question, and it carries about 17.5% of the paper, and expect around 7 marks or 7 questions. So what I've seen is in the Majun paper, in the Majun series, it had all the papers had 6 questions about waves. But in the October-November one, it increased to 7 questions. So each paper from October-November had 7 questions. So it has increased in popularity. So make sure you really understand waves. And it's about like 7 marks. So make sure you understand it deeply, because they can ask you anything. What's popular is the properties of waves. So make sure you understand. Let's say they give you a wave diagram. Make sure you understand which one's the wavelength, which one is the amplitude. So quick recap, this is amplitude, the whole thing is wavelength, that's the wavelength. So make sure you understand this. I go over it deeply and in detail on my waves video, so make sure to check that out. The next one is light waves. So under light waves, there is reflection, refraction, and thirdly, there's diffraction. So make sure you understand these three terms. And if you don't understand these three terms, you can check out my waves video, and I go over each terms in details. And the next one is the electromagnetic spectrum. So there are different waves in the electromagnetic spectrum. I will list them below, and they have okay. You also have to know the trend in wavelength and also the trend in frequency. So if I list them in decreasing wavelengths, it's first radio waves, and then we have microwaves, and then after that we have infrared, and then I believe it's visible light, and then ultraviolet rays, X-rays, and lastly gamma rays. So when we go this side, they increase in wavelength, and when we go this side, there is an increase in frequency. Make sure you understand this part. The next one is sound waves. So the sound waves, it's very popular, and I've seen at least one question about sound in each paper. So make sure you understand sound, and make sure you understand the speed of sound in air, which is 330 meters per second. And wave diagrams. Wave diagrams, I've seen them multiple times, but they have decreased in popularity. So make sure you know how to draw wave diagrams. Okay, understand wave diagrams and where to determine where the image of an object is formed. So if you don't understand this, I've gone through it on my waves video, so make sure to check it out. Now, topic 8, the most popular one. So it contains 25% of the paper, which is 1/4 of the paper, and it has 10 questions per paper. So knowing this topic could make and break your grades. It's electricity and magnetism. So what they can ask you about electric charges. So they can ask you about a charged object, what happens to it when it's charged. So it gains electrons. If it loses electrons, it becomes positively charged. If it gains electron, it becomes negatively charged. The next one is electric circuits and circuit components. So this always comes. So make sure you understand electric circuits, how to calculate voltage, power, resistance. Make sure you know that, and make sure you know the formulas for this one. If you don't know all the formulas, I've gone through it in my crash course, so make sure to check that out. And magnetism. What's interesting about magnetism is that there's only one question or 0 questions about magnetism. So it has certainly decreased in popularity. So you don't have to worry too much about magnetism. Expect 1 question. And the next one is electromagnetic effect. Now this is what comes. Now this is what's a bit tough for most students. So make sure you understand the effect of like a magnetic field in an electric current. Make sure how a transformer works and the formula for the transformer, which is NP over NS equals VP over Vs. If you don't understand what this formula means, I've went through it in my crash course, so make sure to check it out. And you should also know how a generator works, because I've seen multiple questions about how a generator works in relation to electromagnetic effects. So this is a very big topic, so make sure you truly understand electricity and magnetism. Nuclear physics. So this has a probability of 10%, and it's about 4 questions per paper. And what I found interesting is that every single time it had 4 questions. So since the 2023 papers, everything, it's always 4 questions. 4 questions per paper. So expect 4 questions per paper, unless Cambridge decide to change things up. So 4 questions per paper, what to expect. So we have to understand the structure of an atom, and we also have to understand the atomic notation. So if we have an element X, this is a mass number, this is the atomic number. So this is the number of protons, this is protons plus neutrons. You should understand this. And also radioactivity, which also works together with radioactive decay and count rate. So make sure you know how to calculate radioactive decay or the half-life of an isotope or a nucleus. So radioactive decay happens to unstable nucleus. So make sure you understand that part, and make sure you know how to calculate the count rate and the half-life. So equations of decay. So there are 3 types of decay. It's an alpha decay, beta minus decay, and also gamma decay. So you should understand what happens in an alpha decay and a beta minus decay and in a gamma decay. You should know what happens to the nucleus, which increases. Does the proton decrease or increase? So make sure you understand this 3. It's crucial, and I've also went through it through in my crash course video, so make sure to check it out. And then last one is half-life graphs. So I've seen this a few times. So they would give you a graph, and this is the usual graph, and they would ask you to calculate the half-life. So what you have to watch out for this is make sure to consider the background radiation. Let's say the background radiation was 20 and this is like 100. So if they ask you the half-life of it, make sure you subtract 20 from 100 first. So that would be 80. So let's say 80 is somewhere around here. So you track down where the graph is and then you go down. So this number over here, that's the half-life of the nucleus. So make sure to consider the background radiation. It tricks a lot of students, so make sure to understand this. Now the last topic, space physics. So the probability is 10%, and that's about 4 questions per paper. And what I found interesting is in the May-June series, it was always 4 questions. In the May-June series, always 4 questions. And in the October-November series, it decreased to 3 questions. So each paper in October-November had 3 questions, and the May-June had 4 questions. So it was decreasing, and after that, in the Feb-March 2024 series, the latest one, it became 4 questions again. So I believe expect around 4 questions on the May-June paper, the upcoming May-June paper. So what do you have to understand for this? Understand the Earth and the Moon and how the Moon rotates around the Earth. So this is not hard. So you'll be fine with this. And also understand the solar system, and how there are like 8 planets. Sorry about that. 8 planets revolving the sun, and make sure you know the order of the planets and know that the temperature decreases as you go far away from the planet and temperature increases. And make sure you know the division between rocky planets and gaseous planets. And this rocky this rocky planet are also okay, they're smaller, and the gas planets are giant. So what are the rocky planets? It's the first 4. There is Mercury, there is Venus, Earth, and Mars. And the other 4 are the gas planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. And you also have to understand the life cycle of a star. So make sure you know each step of the life cycle of a star, because I've seen it come up multiple times. And the last one is the universe and Hubble's constant. So Hubble's constant, they'll give you the exact value if you need to make calculations, but it's velocity over distance, and it's measured in second minus 1, or sometimes in hertz. And the Hubble constant can be used to determine the age of the universe. So that was the last topic. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you good luck for your upcoming exam. Thank you for watching.